So, welcome everybody. I would love to say podcast number 85, but unfortunately, it doesn't look like this is gonna. Um, Greg Peteraitis unfortunately cannot connect with us due to some technological issues. So, instead, we're gonna do probably a little Q&A, and he's not on. Oh no.
You're welcome, Scott.
Yeah. So we're going to do a Q&A instead, and talk about recent events to deal with the bowling industry and anything you guys want to talk about. Sorry for the Scott, we really were hoping to have him on, but unfortunately that doesn't look like that's going to be an option.
Yeah. So we do have some topics. We're not completely brain dead, so that
damn close.
Speak for yourself.
Yeah, that is there. So I mean, we do have some topics. Maybe we can bring some of you guys on. We can talk about our trick shots. I think I'm writing them all down right now. That's how great we are. So we got trick shots.
Scott, we do too. We do too.
We got trick shots. We got Dexter's rant. We're gonna do that.
I wish I could change the name of this thing. I don't believe I can. So bad.
You watch Tim and Sid. It could be Tim and Dexter's. It could be like the Sid's rant about the Olympic ice hockey. Maybe it's Dexter's rant. We can talk about the C5 meetings that I was part of. Hey, Gino, keep it down. Maybe we can bring back Helene on. And you know what? Maybe we can, if we wanted to, maybe we can even throw JB on and maybe talk about his new website about the 265 average thing.
It's 260, Tim.
260.
I don't know how you got a 5 out of the bowling ball.
Bet 365.
It looks almost exactly the same thing.
Yeah. So how about if JB wants to come on? We can schedule JB on from.
I will send JB the link and then he can join us.
Beautiful.
There we go. So how about I start
go from GP to JB, same thing.
Yeah. So how about we start off with maybe the C5 meetings? We can talk about that a little bit. We didn't want to touch on the base for that because we had such a great podcast last week with Helene. So we really enjoyed her last week.
Yes, it was awesome.
So C5 AGM was last couple weekends ago. Obviously, it was short and sweet a little bit. But obviously, we all heard the news that the Open was canceled and the IP was canceled this year. And that was kind of expected with all the provincial regulations and the restrictions and the nationals and everything else like that. There was talks when we were talking with the presidents and maybe doing like an online virtual. And obviously we sort of have an idea. We sort of have an idea what's going on with 5P Universe and our live streaming. And I just knew it was just such a big undertaking and it'd be such a gong show with that. So as much as I'm an advocate of trying to, carry on, I just knew that was going to be an avenue that just wasn't going to go forward with that. Obviously, they're going to try to do YC. There's some funny things with that. But with YC, they're going to still try to do that. But again, that's still up in the air with that. Other little things that we did was we passed the new official down pin rule. We like to call that the Michael Wist rule because Michael likes to cheat a lot at the TPC. So if he's here,
he almost cheated himself into 15 grand.
15 grand, yes. So it's pretty straightforward. I knew some people in Newfoundland, from my understanding, have a hard time understanding it. So we'll just clear it up here on 5P Universe. Because I can say, and obviously there's no red tape. If it's not down, it's not down. It's not down. So there's no such thing as a leaning pin anymore or off its base. Okay?
Leaning pin is removed from the rule completely.
All right.
So off its base does not count as down.
Correct. So unless the only restriction is if there's a mechanism snag where a string gets pulled and the shield's coming down, you can see it because of a string mechanical error, right? Or if it's that's the only real thing. And if it's
or if a pin is holding it, right?
Correct.
Yeah,
yes.
exactly. If it's leaning on a pin and that's holding it up, then that's that. But if it's just off its base, that isn't a thing anymore.
That isn't a thing anymore.
That's still up.
So there's nothing like that. So yeah. So Andrew, please tell your Newfoundland buddies out there that's not an issue anymore. Okay.
Yeah. Tough luck. Pin better be over.
Yes. So we always thought out here, we talked about in Alberta, it's like if it's not down, it's not down, right? So
yeah, so many times we saw a pin go from here. Oh, what's straight on this thing? Holy crap. This is hard. Other arm. Here we go. I go from here to here, and everyone's like, it's down. You can't do that anymore. That's not down. There's no way that pin was going to go down. So, yes, here we go. No, yeah. If there's arguments, Chris, send them to Tim.
Yeah, I have no problem.
I'll give you Tim's phone number. I'll post it on this podcast. I don't even care.
Yeah. When it comes to free fall, if there's an issue with a pin or a ball and it's there, somebody has to pull that pin or ball out, and then if it falls and properly, then it's obviously down. If it goes straight back up, then it's up. So
yeah, so that's basically the same rule that already existed for a free fall before, right?
Yeah, correct. Yeah. So it's all good. Yeah. So I think that's the fairest way of doing the thing. So I'm interested to see how things go. And
Hey, Brett, I've never tried to grease a leaning pin. I always say it's up.
Yeah, pretty much. That's kind of a good karma thing for me too. Like whenever I've seen it and it's been close, I'm like, not. You know what? I'm shooting at it, because I would hate to. Yeah, exactly, Andrew. That's exactly it. I would hate to have people question stuff like that, and now it's either down or it's up, and that's pretty much it. So,
pretty much Freddie Toff from our Shot Perfect Game got me. That's what I say.
But you know what? We're playing matches for yeah. But we're playing major matches for gold medals at nationals and all this stuff, and it's a hearsay, sort of thing. And he said, she said, and no, it's time that rule gets abolished, especially when there's lots of times where there's lots of things on the line, and this will stop some arguments and some anger, I think.
Obviously, you're still going to get the people that think a string is holding it up or whatever. Like a majority rule will have to be applied to that, I think, when you're in matches and stuff like that. But there will be no longer the pin just a little bit off. The pin has to look like it's falling in order to get counted. So
and when a string is holding a pin up, it's almost always really obvious. It's rare. But it's always pretty obvious, the pin will fall off and then kind of just swing around in a circle sort of thing because the string doesn't release. But that pin will still go. It just won't go all the way over. So I
think it's fair. It looks like everybody's happy with the rule change. That's good. Yeah. I know Michael is, so that's good.
There's lots of technical issues that probably could be used to address this, Brett. Obviously, the C5 is probably looking at some stuff like that. But I always thought of a cool idea, something that could be added to maybe the top of the pin as like a level or something. And after it goes over so many degrees, it counts as a down pin or whatever. But that's a lot more mechanical and computer work that would need to be to do something like that.
Yeah, Brett, are you referring to like the speed in which a machine cycles, like how quickly it cycles? Because if that's the case on the, at least for the CA1s, I know on the B5 board, there's a set screw that you can adjust it. And that'll set the timing. I think it only goes up to 3 seconds from the first time that a pin gets hit. But there is an adjustment on there for that. So
no. The other thing too, people have to realize is the big rule is a lot of you guys have worked in a center too, is the black bases are so tough to figure out what's leaning now without the white bases, right? And the other thing, The other thing is too with those bases, they're soft too, right? So you can have even on the white ones too. They could be battered and beaten, and so when you actually have them sitting down, they can either automatically be leaning already. Yeah, yeah, you're right.
And all your pins go right into the pit, Palmer.
Yeah, correct. Palmer throws nothing but strikes if he hits the middle, so it's fine.
Right, and the other thing is too. I mean, the pucks themselves could be worn in too, right? And that could also be leaning. Yes, Nathan, if it's not up there, it will be up shortly. Yes, correct. Yeah.
Cool. That's a I think a really good rule in the right direction for our sport. Entertainment wise, I don't think people are really going to care anyways, right? It's for the competitive side of it that it makes a lot more sense, and it is a lot more clear now, I think, than it was before.
I think it adds to the professionalism of the game. You know, it just takes out the guesswork, and
I'll change bases out once we get rid of the whatever that cheap thing
Mike,
you use, Tweety.
Yeah, we'll get rid of the bases when you take off half a barrel of oil off your lanes first,
and stop using the stick.
Yeah.
Senior Masters. This podcast is just going to be about bashing people today. I think
it's fine. It's not a podcast, and it isn't sponsored, so we don't have to worry about hurting anybody's feelings.
Is JB coming on?
Yeah, he's just getting ready. I imagine he's probably mixing a drink or two.
Okay. That's fair. I should have done the same thing.
So I guess the next. We're not afraid of the stick. You haven't won anything lately, Tweety.
Heartland Bowling.
Yeah. I guess the other thing is we could talk about is in Alberta. We just got off the phone with the town hall meeting with our health minister and everything else like that, our premier, about our updated rules. They come up with new steps now. And step one starting on Monday. Now they put all sports in blanket sports. So now they're talking about blanket sports. So gyms can open up and restaurants can open up and so on and so forth. So they put everybody all in the same, grouped all sports in one. They grouped all sports in one. So now bowling alleys can open up apparently on Monday if it's 1-on-1. Oh, Greg's here actually. If it's 1-on-1 only with a certified coach.
Yeah, to blanket that statement, that's so tough for the bowling industry, right?
Yeah.
So this is kind of what my rant is about, and like I lost my mind on Monday when I started hearing this coming down the line, and then I kind of settled off for the last couple of days, knowing that we had a town hall coming in tonight, and the town hall rolls around and we don't even get to talk. This is absolutely astronomically ass backwards. I do not understand how they're able to even consider this for bowling at all. So it's going to be 1-on-1. You must have a coach, a certified coach or trainer with them at all times. It's now not 6 feet apart, it's 10 feet apart for spacing. So realistically, in our center of 16 lanes, we can use 5 or 6 lanes, depending on how we space it out. If we have to employ those people to be down there with those bowlers, that means that we're going to have to employ 6 staff members to have 5 people playing. And somehow in all of that, if we're allowed to open in any sort of capacity, rent subsidy for us currently is 90%. If you are mandated to be closed, you get a 90% rent subsidy. If you are allowed to be open in any capacity, that rent subsidy changes to 65%. So here we are having to reopen, and that immediately costs us $8,000 a month to reopen and try to do something one-on-one with people where you're going to make $20 a person in an hour. as a business. And how is this feasible for anybody in this sport? They're going to absolutely destroy the sport by putting in these restrictions haphazardly and not thinking any of this shit through. And not only that, it's one-on-one, and you can't even put it in scoring. They did say that, you know what, if you're going to have one-on-one, you might be able to bring in a member of your household, but no one's going to want to go bowling because they're not even going to get to see their scores. It's literally just training. So we have to open up and lose 25% of rent subsidy because they decide that, hey, you're the same as a gym with a personal fucking trainer.
Okay. All right.
Yes.
So,
I like the rant.
you liked it.
So we do have a couple of guests that did show up. What we're going to do first is we're going to bring JB in because we invited him to talk about his new project he is taken underhand here in the bowling sport. And then after that, we will, if JB wants to stick around, he's more than happy to stick around and discuss some stuff. And we're going to introduce our special guest of the week. So, Greg, if you're cool with that, just hang out in the background and I'll bring you in when we're ready for you. All right, JB, how are you?
I'm all right. Test 1, 2. Do you hear me?
We hear you.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well then, thanks very much.
How's it going, buddy? Good to see you.
Pretty well. So thanks very much. Little of the maple rye. Thanks again, Tim. Appreciate it.
Gotta support each other in their endeavors these days.
Indeed.
Yeah. So JB, obviously we shared your project as 5 Pin Universe and stuff like that, but tell us and the chat all about your new project.
So I just decided that I finally want to throw myself into being good at this game. So I was thinking about what could I do that would be enjoyable for me, that would give me a bit of a creative outlet. And that might provide something that's a little bit of a counterpoint to what you folks are doing with 5 Pin Universe, and to give sort of a little bit of the narrative media side of things. And I wanted an excuse to play around with some technology that's good for my, for my software consulting business as well. So everything kind of came together. And being in one of the few parts of the country that can actually bowl regularly, where things kind of feel somewhat normal, if it gives people a chance to feel a little bit like they can live vicariously through somebody else's struggles, then I thought that might be a nice thing to do. And when I was trying to think of what to call it, as usually happens with these things, you try to come up with a name that reflects what's really going on, and you struggle with a whole bunch of things, and the name just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And then at some point you just realize, no, this is ridiculous. Just like, what the fuck is this really about? And that's the name. And so I just sat there and thought, yeah, you know what? I want to be a 260 bowler. I think I can be a 260 bowler. So I'm going to be the 260 bowler. So that's when I got the idea for the logo. I have no idea how well this is going to work, but I'm going to try it. Let's see. Will this work? Yeah. If by chance that worked.
Yeah, of course. I can definitely add that there.
All right. So it's that simple. So here we are. I came up with the logo. It was funny. Sarah came up into the office here where all the lights are, and we took like 30 photos of one of my bowling balls to try to get like the perfect angle with the perfect lighting. And I just picked a shot at random, cropped it, ran it through like the cartoonizer, and used it. So she was really happy about all the work she did to try to take the perfect photo from the perfect angle with the perfect lighting, and I'm holding all this stuff. And we said, what, you just chose the first shot and it worked? Sometimes that's how it goes. So right, you can see the basic elements, right? I didn't intend for it to look like 1980 San Diego Padres. That's just kind of how the colors worked. But so anyone who wants to just read a little bit about some poor schmuck's attempt to actually go from sort of good to great, that's what I'm planning to do. And I really do have to thank both you guys and Tom Patterson for your roles in helping me finally decide to really do this. For the 8 people in there who read it, when I wrote now all 3.5 years ago my article when 5-Pin Universe was first taken off, I reread it recently, and it sort of had this really somber, wistful feel about all the regrets of things not achieved, and I thought, well, I'm not dead yet. My body hasn't completely fallen apart. I'm finally starting to get a sense of the mental side of the game. I can still do this. So I decided, what the hell, I'm going to do it. And, Tom's been really nice in working with me on the mental side of the game for the last few months. And I finally just decided to hell with this. I'm going to stop thinking of myself as the person who could have done it. And instead, I'm going to think of myself as a person who can do it. So if you'd like to experience this, then please come over here, subscribe. You can get the articles pretty much any way you want, including email. I think it'll tweet at you. It might even send you Facebook messages. I don't know. There's a little stuff about the PEI Open, since we got to have one. So that's what I'm doing. And I hope that people are interested in following along. And I have to say, folks, I need your help. Please help me. So get involved in the discussions. Don't be afraid. I mean, it's one, I can't seem to lure you people off Facebook as much as I would like to. The only reason I'm on Facebook is because you 5-Pin people insist on being in this horrible place, and I can't. There's like 2 bowlers on Twitter, and so I really appreciate it if people would subscribe, read. I don't know how much I'm going to write. I'm thinking of somewhere between like 3 and 8 times a month. It depends really on how much I have to say. I don't want to be one of those writers who writes twice a week, whether he has something to say or not. But, I want to tell some stories about growing up as a bowler and, sort of how that affects the way I think of the game now. All the psychology stuff that I've been reading about in the last 10 years, partly for this and partly for my work as a consultant, that it's all coming together. And then just, stories of the up and down of bowling shit like I did tonight, and maybe enjoying the occasional good scores too. And so I hope people will follow along and that they will don't just read. Please get involved in the discussions. I need your help. That I cannot do this alone. And actually, I tried doing it alone and it didn't work. I got the 237 and stopped. So that's not good enough anymore. So please,
for sure.
Please,
I really hope the bowling community takes part of it. I think it's a great idea. I do have a couple suggestions for you. So,
sure.
So what I've been told, because I'm actually a Twitter person, Twitter is for old people. So that might be a reason why.
Facebook is for older people. It's for older people to talk about their grades.
TikTok's where it's at, JB. Just ask Dexter. He can help you through that if you need it.
I tried taking some B-roll as I was walking up to the lanes tonight so that I could have something ready to do some little clips. Unfortunately, I had a hell of a lot more energy walking up to the lanes than I did walking back tonight, so that's why I didn't post anything.
Totally
567 triple will do. Yeah.
On your way
I would take that triple right now.
Yeah, well, I mean, exactly. I threw, I think, 3 shots in a row that were beautiful. And I achieved the one thing that I wanted to practice tonight, but my left shoulder decided that it was not having any of it. And, it's hard when you go to throw the ball and you don't know how much pain on a scale of 1 to 10 you're going to feel. It's hard to trust your shot when that's happening.
Yeah,
totally.
So that means I have to get off my ass and get back to stretching tomorrow and all that good stuff that was working until I was stupid enough to think that I had been healed and stopped doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
yeah.
Hello, microphone. Go
All right. Well, that's a great project, and like I said, I hope everybody takes part in it. I think we've let our special guest sit in the back long enough. JB, you're more than welcome to stick around and ask him questions as we go through here.
Awesome.
And so we'll bring our special guest in. We'll roll our sponsor for the week. And Greg, if you're ready, we'll be bringing you in shortly. Find my commercial here. All right. As our special guest, and the people seen our overlay there as they've been waiting all week for it, man of the Ontario 5-Pin Hall of Fame, Mr. Greg Peteraitis.
Hey, Greg.
Hey,
Hi.
Greg.
How you doing, guys? Sorry about the
Great.
technical glitches. You're dealing with an old guy, so I'm not really savvy with the iPhone and shit like that. So
That's all right.
That's all right. No big deal.
We're
Glad we could have you on.
Yeah.
I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. Obviously, you have quite the extensive resume, and being a part of Ontario's success in the Masters and the Open, and your own successes on the Cash Tour and stuff. And because this is going to be a little bit more condensed than we're used to.
Don't worry, I can talk fast.
Greg, where would you like to start? How would you like to start this podcast?
I can tell you, well, first of all, I'm 59 years old, and I've been bowling for 55 years now. I started when I was 4 years old. My parents got me involved in bowling. And as a matter of fact, the bowling alley that I first started with was Plantation Bowl. And at the time, that would have been 1965, it had 56 lanes of 5-pin, double diamond free fall on 2 levels, and bowling was 40 cents a game.
Wow.
Holy cow.
Yes, it was quite the thing. And you actually, on Sunday afternoons, I can still remember they would hand out numbers for people waiting to open bowl. It was that busy. And unfortunately, that became Bowlerama, and it was just demolished not long ago for condos. It wasn't all 5-pin when it was demolished, but
Right.
that's sad, though.
Yeah, that's crazy. Couldn't even imagine having a bowling alley that big anymore. I mean, Bonnie Dude's 48 lanes, and that's crazy to me.
Well, one of the places that sorry, go ahead. One of the places I used to practice in Toronto was called Olympia Edward Lanes. It was downtown Toronto, which became the world's biggest bookstore. It had 80 lanes in it at one time. 16 back to back, 8 in an annex, and upstairs 16 and 8 in the back. And it was half string and half free fall. And it was an absolutely amazing house. There was a legitimate average. I believe it was, I got to think who it was now. A gentleman averaged 292 for a full season. And this is before personalized balls, kickbacks, and then you name it. So it was a huge house. But I'll just tell you briefly, I didn't really have much of a YBC career. I used to go out with my parents, and I started bowling in a league when I was 12, mixed league with my parents. And I only started bowling YBC the last 2 years of senior. That's all I was able to. I never knew about it until then. So I only bowled 2 years of YBC seniors. And I actually started bowling in a men's league when I was 16, which you weren't supposed to do back then. That was a no-no. You couldn't take money. But and they didn't really like me that much either, because I won the high average both years. I was 16 and 17, and average was 257. So that didn't go over very well.
Yeah, for sure. So Greg, let us know how, before we get into your career highlights and stuff like that, how has COVID affected your daily life, and how are you getting through it, as a lot of our guests want to know everybody's trial.
Mike and I haven't killed each other yet, although we came close in March because we had to quarantine. We came back from Vegas in March, just as AHS was announcing restrictions, and we missed it by 1 day. We've been both fortunate enough. We're both essential workers. I work for CIBC. I've been there 40 years, and we're both essential, so I've not missed a day. Neither has Mike. And we actually did have a case of COVID 2 weeks ago. One of my coworkers.
Oh, wow.
But
Yeah.
it was pretty hairy. But under the AHS guidelines, close contact is defined as being within cumulative time of 15 minutes, less than 6 feet, masked or not masked. And we determined that we sit 6 feet apart and we do not have close contact. So we were very lucky that it was just the one person.
Right.
Yeah,
But,
that's awesome to hear.
Yeah, but daily life, I mean, this is getting to be, I heard your rant about the bowling. I have a real problem with the way the science is going around, the way AHS is determining what can open and what cannot open. I mean, we had bowling alleys open prior to this shutdown. We had, 25% capacity, or I believe, wasn't it 25?
Yeah,
So
25%.
Yeah, so we were operating every other lane. I'd like somebody to explain to me, how is that more unsafe than going on a Calgary Transit bus? I haven't been on transit in a year. Mike won't let me. I take cabs if I have to, but they've not restricted the seating on buses. They got rid of that a few months ago. So tell me how that is any more risk. And also the big box stores, when the pandemic first hit back in March, they were counting people as they were going in. I don't see anybody counting people now.
They don't
so
count anymore.
I understand the caution that they want, the science is changing all the time, but like I said, I just don't understand sometimes the rationale behind this.
Yeah, I think,
and I
think money talks. Yeah.
The only thing that's good. The only thing that's good is
big problems is.
Sorry.
Sorry, Greg.
I'm
listen to you, not to me, so it's fine.
The only good thing about the mandated shutdown is the proprietors can access whatever assistance is available, either the wage subsidy, the rent subsidy, whatever. It's when they open up again and they do the partial thing, that's when it becomes a real headache, because now you're opening and you're losing money.
Yes.
Right.
So,
right. You're exactly right, Greg.
So this whole thing about, I heard about, because I've been in contact with, I talk to Mark all the time, Mark Miller at Peteraitis. So this whole thing about this training thing, I mean, this is absolutely ridiculous, but long and short of it, you try to make the best of it. Like I said, I'm thank God I'm still working. Like I said, I've got 5 days a week where I can, go to work, which unfortunately a lot of people don't have that privilege.
No, for sure.
Yeah,
totally. For sure. And JB, obviously out in PEI, it's almost normal life out there.
Yeah, we have one huge advantage over the rest of the country, and that is that we can just, pull up the drawbridge, and that's pretty much it. It's really terrible for the people who rely on travel outside of the province for work. I'm sure there are people who commute pretty regularly to Halifax, to Moncton, places like that, for meetings or whatever, and it's crushing for them. But otherwise, we've never had more than 10 cases at the same time. We've never every case that we've had has fully recovered, and it's kind of funny because forgive me for the one or two Islanders out there who might be listening. I say this with affection. It's a good thing because we're pretty optimistically careless out here. And, people walk around in their lives like nothing bad is ever going to happen. And so, we wear masks everywhere, and not everybody takes it seriously, and not everybody cares. And it's just as well, because if we really did have an outbreak here, it would be chaos within a couple of weeks. People really just they walk around like nothing bad is ever going to happen here, and so we're lucky. It almost never does.
We get that out here in Alberta in like the rural communities and stuff like that, right? The rural communities aren't as affected nearly as much, so you get that carefree attitude. And not to bring politics into it, but it is a fairly conservative province, so the rural communities reflect that, and it is what it is. We obviously aren't the government. We got to do our best to help the restrictions, but we don't want to see our sport fail either, and it's pointed in the wrong direction at this point.
And that's the hard part for me too, because I've done a lot of travel to tournaments. Like I said in the chat, I was this close to booking the flight to come out there and spend a couple of weeks with you guys, and then all the plans went out the window. And yeah, I mean, I've been hit hard too. Lots and lots of money from on-site work in Europe flew out the window when I didn't go for 3 months at the end of last year. Yeah. I'm so lucky that I'm in a much better position to absorb that hit, and even the fact that I'm probably not going to have any of that work this year either, is annoying and not devastating. I really wish I could I would love nothing more than to have hit Lotto Max and to help a lot of the people in the bowling community out of this problem.
Totally.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Well, I think we beat COVID over the head over the last 82 podcasts here.
Yeah.
But, so Greg, we'll move on. So I'm sure a lot of people know, and this is kind of something I want to hit on, even though it may not be a career stat of yours or anything like that. But you may be the person with the largest collection of bowling balls I've ever seen in my life.
Yes, that's entirely true. The picture that's up there's 2 racks, estimated as excess of 200 balls for sure.
That is unreal. And is that over a certain time span? Like, did you recently decide to start collecting, or is that kind of
I've
been
been collecting.
Years?
I've been on eBay now, I think 20 years. So my friend John Honeyford, who was my practice partner in Ontario, found eBay, and we started. That's he doesn't have as many as I do, but that's how that started, to try to get balls on eBay. I also I have a contact in Montreal now that I can get soft rolls, which when they're used in Montreal, they're nice and smooth because they don't throw hard, and there's no dents or divots in them.
Yeah.
True.
And of course, I have all my connections in the duckpin thing, because a lot of those balls you cannot buy up here, like Pro Lines or Arrows or Comets, the old type Comets. Some of them are actually quite valuable. The Manhattan Rubbers, the one you may see them in the photo, they're black with white. They sell for about $150 US a ball.
Right.
Really? Yeah. We actually just purchased, I think all of us, like me, Dexter, and Carrie, purchased Manhattans not so long ago.
I swindled a 3-ball set.
Yeah.
Yes, he did.
We do we do like them. Yes. Yeah.
But it's interesting, just as a touch on the bowling balls. Every set has different characteristics. For example, the old Manhattan Rubbers are a very extremely hard rubber ball. The Pro Lines are actually a lucite plastic. The majority of the ball is a lucite plastic, so it reacts quite differently on the lane. Arrows, for example, arrows were made by the Hammer Bowling Company. The first urethane 10-pin ball that came out was made by Hammer, and they're actually urethane. They're actually almost a pure urethane ball in a small ball, not like the Epco Cyclones. Of course, soft rolls. Of course, I've been I'm very good friends with my buddy Steve Phipps in Ontario, and it's really interesting about soft rolls is every time you get a set, I never know what they're going to be like. They're all different. Yeah. Even though there's a targeted thing, there's always a difference in the soft rolls. Some of them are very soft. Some of them are actually much harder.
Yeah. I found when I got the newer ones. Sorry, Dexter. When I got the newer ones, they were a little bit harder than one of the original ones I purchased through Steve's. So.
Even on the catalogs, they have them like graded. There's a range of hardness, which is interesting, right? I think for the missiles, I think it ranges from on the sheet like 72 to 76 or something on the durometer rating, which is it's neat that there's actually just a scale rather than a definitive number.
It's actually an interesting story. Steve Phipps, there was a ball refinisher by the name of Lionel Beauparlant in Welland, Ontario. He used to work at the company General Tire that used to make the old Tiger Stripe and PBS balls. And Lionel was a line inspector. And what he used to do is when a ball didn't meet quite specs, whether it be too much color, not enough color, he'd pull them off and buy them from $1 from the company and then sell them for $25. And then he started a bowling refinishing thing for bowling balls. And his brother actually made a custom-made lathe to cut bowling balls. Well, Steve worked for a chemical company. He was looking for something else to do. And Lionel wanted to sell the business, and Steve bought it. And the whole idea of the way soft rolls came about is Steve wanted to duplicate the old Tiger Stripe and PBS balls. Now, as you know, both of the balls are very black, right? They use sulfur compounds to harden the rubber. Well, when Steve started the soft roll line, he found out that you couldn't use sulfur hardening compounds anymore because of environmental concerns. So he had to use a synthetic hardener. So that's why, for example, even though they're supposed to be targeted, like the PBS Brunswick series is, they all come out at 80 hardness. There has not been one soft roll, and I'm hope I'm not speaking out of turn here if Steve is listening. I've never seen a soft roll that hard. The hardest set I've ever had is a 76. That's as hard as I've ever had the soft roll up on the durometer scale. And I've got ones that are below 70.
So is it true the more solid ones are usually softer than the ones with multicolors in them?
We've been trying to figure that out. I've asked Steve about that, why the balls come out differently. One of the things is when you're working with a natural product like rubber, it's very fickle to work with, and because it's natural, sometimes you may get a batch, like you said, for example, the new ones may be a little harder and the older ones might be a little bit softer. As you know, it's the same thing with rubber bands on pins. You know that sometimes when they make a batch of bands, they come out perfect and the next batch is absolute crap. And it's the same formula, but it's, like I say, it's very, very fickle to work with. He also discussed with me that he has to add color, like a color dye to the rubber. The actual color of the rubber is cream. It's a cream color. That's the natural color of the rubber. So when you see a ball that's got cream in it, that's natural. That's the actual color of the rubber. So in order to make colors, you have to add dyes. And he thinks sometimes when he adds the dye, that it changes the composition of the ball. I can speak from experience, as my vast collection can attest to. Balls that have orange in them seem to be really, really soft. They have that characteristic. I don't know why. Whereas the ones that seem to be a little bit harder, of course, is the more cream that's in the ball, the harder the ball, because the harder ball that it seems to come out.
Yeah, because I actually ended up with 2 solid soft rolls, and one I got from Jeff Young, which is a pure orange one, and it's definitely a lot softer. You can just feel it in the grip and stuff, and it might be a little bit of a finish. Maybe it's a little bit older or something like that, but just physically holding it, you can tell that it's softer, and it leaves some marks on the lanes.
I'm lucky because I get him. I'm able to get him to make whatever I want. If I ask for a particular color, like I've got color combinations in there that you guys have never seen before. Nobody's ever done them before. Like I just my latest set is orange, yellow, and cream sidewinder.
Yeah, when you send them to me, I'm just amazed by all the different colors you get with them. It's insane. Yeah. I just they're all unique to you, right? They're all brand new and they're different. They're unique. Yeah,
the only thing is if I get a set of balls and I use them and I don't particularly like them, then I'll put them up for sale. I don't make money on them. I just sell them for whatever the cost is, what I paid for them. But there are some that I try them out and I just don't like them. Like I have a set right now. The newest thing that's available now at Phipps is a Tornado series. It looks almost like a comet ball. And I've got 2 of them. They were done as a one-off. They're black, cream, and the predominant color is gray. But I find that, well, especially throwing out on overlay, that the ball is actually too hard. I don't like a ball that, I'll go into that a little later. I'll explain that about overlay. And one of my nemesis now in the game, but overlay seems to refract energy. When you throw a ball out on overlay, because it's only the majority of overlay is only 3/8 of an inch thick, it refracts energy. So when you throw a hard ball out there, it makes a sound and it actually does do a little bit of a bounce. Not a lot, but just enough sometimes to take the stuff off the shot. That's why right now I'm concentrating more on trying to, I call it the rollout shot. When I get really, really soft rolls, I can turn the crap out of the ball and the ball would just float at the pins, which is what I want.
Yeah.
Right.
Makes sense.
Well, and that could be a big explanation to why you see a lot of, I wouldn't say older bowlers, but bowlers that played on a lot of wood for a lot of their career go to synthetics and they tell you right away, oh, I don't like it. I don't like the way it hits the lane or the way it reacts on the lane, stuff like that. And obviously that could be a definite play on it, right?
Well, the majority of the overlays in Canada are overlays. Like true overlays. There are very few houses that are synthetic from the ground up. Neb's in Oshawa is and always has been. The bowling alley in Banff, and there was one up your way in Edmonton, Millwoods, which
Fraser?
I bowled at long.
Millwoods and Fraser too. Yeah, Millwoods.
Fraser Bowl, I believe, was also from the ground up, but those are very expensive to do, and obviously overlays cheaper, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's another thing, Greg. You can probably tell our listeners how many bowling centers you play out of.
Wow, that's another thing. I'll tell you a quick story about that.
Yeah.
When I was 16 years old, I was always being accused of being a double diamond bowler, double diamond free fall, because that's what we had at the time in the city of Toronto. And they said, "Oh, this guy can only play on double diamond." I said, "Okay, well, now I got to figure out, well, you know what? If I'm going to be better, I've got to figure out how to bowl on every kind of condition there is." So I started this record. I've got the book actually in front of me. It's sitting on my desk as I'm talking. And I started this thing of visiting bowling centers when I was 16 years old. First, of course, the first things, of course, I bowled in all the centers in Toronto. And then I kept going and going. And as I made nationals and whatnot, and I just completed, when it was open, I went up to the new house in Lloydminster. That was my 711th house that I bowled in 5-pin. This is just 5-pin, not duck pin, not 10-pin, not candle pin. These are strictly 5-pin houses. So 711 I'm at right now.
That's crazy.
So I got news for you boys. I've seen everything. There isn't one condition I have not seen yet. Not one.
Yeah, totally fair.
So tell us, what is the worst condition you've ever seen?
I have a good story about that too. If John Greenlee's listening, he'll back me up on this one. We bowled the Open one time at a bowling center in I'll say in Ontario, Durham. I won't say that. It's no longer there. It was demolished for a parking lot. 12-lane center, wood lane, string. I don't know if you've ever heard of Guardian, the Guardian lane system.
Yeah.
Okay.
It
was designed. It's a polymer film that's about 3 millimeters thick, and was designed to be put down over the lane as a protection to lengthen the time before you had to replace the wood or refinish. Now, it was only supposed to be on temporary. This particular house put it down all 60 feet of the lane, and they left it there for like 10, 12 years. Now, the best way I could describe it is putting a piece of Scotch tape on a piece of paper and then taking a pen and then going over and over in the same spot. And guess what happens? It gets grooved.
Yeah.
Well, these lanes were so bad that you could actually make a ball double break. You could make it back up and hook at the same time on the same lane. So we rolled 10 games of the Open in that house.
21.
Oh yeah. I shot the best 2,450 you have ever seen played. And the guys that bowled with me will attest to this. It was just an absolute. Dave Slappendell is a great bowler out of Durham. He's a 260 average. He rolled 1990 for 10 games. It was that bad. It was just. I think I shot I was on 1 and 2 twice, which was the worst pair in the house, and I think I rolled 440 for 2, and I think I gained 50 or 60 pins on the field. Oh. It was just this is beyond grinding it out, and I'm telling you, I never heard the F word so much, especially from the women. That was probably one of the worst in a tournament play. Now, I've played in a lot of places in my travels that I've seen that are like, okay, man. Like one place I can remember was a 2-laner up on, where the hell was it? In Saskatchewan. They put 2 lanes in a community center, and they didn't put of course they bring the lanes in sections, and the sections weren't joined properly, so the ball would hop halfway down the lane, that kind of thing. So
yeah. That's pretty interesting. I wonder what the bowlers now that are averaging 270 and stuff play in a house like that, what they would be saying and stuff they would destroy outside in the parking lot.
Ask the people who bowled in Brampton whenever it was last year, and I think the scores across the board were down 25 or 30 for everybody. It was a graveyard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've not been actually. I've not been back to Ontario since I moved out here. But I remember Brampton Bowl actually changed from free fall to string a few years back, and also the owner retired and sold. They were trying to make a quick buck. Actually, they were going to probably tear down the bowling center and put condos, but the city didn't let them. I don't know why you would want a condo because there's a cemetery across the street. So I never figured that one out. But Brampton Bowl actually was a very good scoring house. It was always lightning fast, but it was always a very good free fall house.
Yeah. That was where I played my teens.
Oh, that's cool.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So we might as well move on to your career in the. Let's start with the Open. Lead us through your career.
But before we get into that, maybe this might lead in a little bit. When you were a kid, who was your coach? Who coached you when you were growing up? And I'm sure pretty much everybody listening knows this, but you're one of the few people that are right-handed that bowls off the right foot. How that all came about, and I mean,
Sure.
personally, this is I hate it, and I'm sure you've heard this lots, but I hate it when people say that that's bowling off the wrong foot because there's definitely major merit to it.
I
And
have a good comeback for that. When people say you bowl off the wrong, when the people say you bowl off the wrong foot, I say I've been bowling for 55 years and nobody's proved me wrong yet.
Absolutely, yeah, no, exactly. You that's exactly it. Let's just go through who coached you and how did you get to that point, and what challenges has that given you?
For the most part, I'm basically a self-taught bowler. I like to watch people bowl and then try to emulate them, and take what good parts that I can see from their games. I had a few coaches. There were a couple of coaches in YBC. They didn't try to convert me to bowling off the left foot. I can't really pinpoint anybody that really. My dad used to help me, but one of the things is I look at the game very differently than anybody else. So when people are trying to coach me and I ask them something, especially Mike, and I don't get the right answer, I get really pissed. So I have a unique way of what I'm trying to do on the lanes. And there was only one coach that I can remember that ever really got what I did, because he used to do it himself, was a gentleman by the name of John Willock out of Hamilton Zone in Ontario. And he coached the men's tournament masters the year that we went to Mount Pearl in Newfoundland. And he understood what I was trying to do. And he was probably the only. My buddy John Honeyford is another one who knows what I'm trying to do on the lanes. Like I said, sometimes it's very hard to explain to somebody. So, I have a really interesting. I got another little story about talking about bowling off the opposite foot.
Yeah,
I used to go up to a place in Toronto called Glen Valley Bowl, and there was an old time money bowler there by the name of Herb Sutcliffe. He's long passed away now. And I went in there and he was instructing me. And one of the things he told me is, of course, I had to slow the ball down. And one day we went in there and he says, well, can you bowl off the left foot? And I said, I can try if you want. I said, I never done it before. So I threw, and one game I shot 410. And he never forgave me for that. That's a true story. That's a true story.
So is that the only game you've ever bowled off your left foot then?
No, actually, when we were going a couple times when we've gone down to Vegas, I will go and bowl 10 pin. There's a midnight special at the South Point, 12 to 6, 99 cents a game. In order not to screw my 5 pin up, I will bowl 10 pin now off my left foot. I don't slide. I just step like a Michael Hogan Jr. I used to bowl 10 pin when I was about 18, 19. I bowled 10 pin for a couple of years off the opposite foot. But one of the things is the deliveries are so different in 10 pin and 5 pin that if you bowl both, you always felt that you would get good to a certain point in both games, and then you'd had to make a decision one way or the other. And I chose 5 pin.
So basically, what I'm hearing is you have a 410 average bowling off the left foot. Did you make the right choice, Greg?
Well, I think so. I'm in the Hall of Fame, so
yeah, I'm just busting your balls.
So I guess for anybody who bowls off the wrong foot, would you have any or not the wrong foot off if bowled bocce? Would you have any advice for them?
Yeah, one of the things, the advantages and disadvantages of bowling bocce style is more than likely you cannot cross your arm in front of your body when you bowl bocce style. That's number one. It's an advantage. Number two, it's very hard sometimes to develop turn on the ball. You really have to work at it. Now I can work the ball from both sides of the lane. Either way, hook or backup, it doesn't matter. I go back and forth all the time. In fact, my practice sessions when I'm able to bowl, I actually play when I'm at Peteraitis. I will play. They put me on the pro score, and I'm on 2 lanes, and I bowl one game against myself. And I bowl with one set of balls, one lane, and one line. And the other set, I bowl a different set of balls and a different line. So that's.
Yeah.
And I'm still, by the way, just as an add-on, I'm still throwing between 50 and 100 games a week at 59 years old.
Oh my God. Good.
I don't think you guys want to bowl in a. I don't think you guys want to practice with me.
Nope.
Yeah.
You're totally wrong there. I want to practice with you.
I've been out to
did it
PEI.
once, and I would love to have the chance to do it again.
Oh, thank you. I've been out to PEI only once. I actually was on one of my bowling trips, and I was able to get to all the centers on the island that were there at the time, including one that I got into. That was another good story too. There's a little town, I can't think, it has a massive cathedral in it, and the bowling alley was in the parish center. And we went there, and it was closed, but the door was open. They were doing some work on the game, on the lanes, because there were some saws and stuff. And I said to Mike, I says, well, you stand outside, and I says, I'll bowl a game in 5 minutes. So I turned on the lane because it was strings. I bowled the game in 5 minutes and left $5 on the counter and left.
Oh, that's actually awesome. I love it.
Obviously, there's quite a few really decent bocce players out there still. Like Matt from Ontario won C5 not that long ago, right?
Yeah.
I think there's a few out there. I know,
I know
a
Matt.
really close friend of Tim's is a bocce player. Huh?
Yeah.
Huh, Tim? Huh?
My girlfriend Cindy. Yeah. Yeah.
I was figuring that's why you're asking him all these questions to get some insight for Cindy, but
Yeah, she's always wondering to know how to get better on things, right? So she just
You know what?
Yeah,
Send me a videotape, just to give me a 10-minute practice session. Just let me see how she plays, and then maybe I can give you some suggestions. That's how I'm doing my coaching now. Of course, with COVID, is if anybody wants it, send me a video, and I'll have a look.
All right. So you hear that, Cindy? He's more than willing to help you out.
I've played a little bit. Sorry,
we have 3 kids here. 2 have graduated YBC. 1 is still in YBC, who all are right-handed and bowl on the right foot. One of them, the one who's still in YBC, pretty much lofts the ball from his knee. But the other 2, her brother and sister, and they have the deep knee bend, the deep waist bend, like I've seen with you. And I'm curious how, I don't know, maybe it's hard for you to compare, but it seems like that deep knee or waist bend when sliding on your right foot is hard compared to, like, it seems more natural when it's the opposite foot. What's your experience like with that?
Well, having done it the same way all my life, it really it doesn't feel foreign to me. The only thing is, though, I think it may, well, from at least in my point of view, from my physical perspective, I'm having a little bit of issues with my hip and my lower back, but one of the things I've had to do is change back to 4 steps. I did 3 for 40 years, and I've gone back to 4, just for the simple reason is I can generate more speed with 4 steps without having to force the ball, without having to heave it down there. So it's a lot easier on my arm and my shoulder, but yeah, so.
Okay.
I've played very limited games off the right foot, but it's something, I feel like everybody's got to have something in their back pocket in case something happens, and you never know. I played ball for the first time in a long time 3 years ago, and first game I absolutely destroyed my ankle to the point where I couldn't walk for 3 days after I was on crutches, and of course it was right before the Red Deer Heritage Traditional, and I'm stubborn. So I went down and I was like, hey, I'm going to bowl. And I used crutches to get in, and I wrap up my left ankle and, okay, let's throw some games. And I ended up throwing, I think I shot about 1,800, but I bowled half my game on my left foot and half my games on the right foot. And I would switch in between, like, partway through the games. And, like, the greatest compliment ever when Bruce Mortar comes out to watch and he looks at you and he goes, "That's an adjustment I can't make." Makes you feel pretty good. And I beat Evan Lacusi in that qualifying shift, so I was quite happy.
Yeah.
Alan Clark had a fun experience like that a few years ago. In between the two provincial open qualifiers, I think he broke his ankle falling on the ice, and so he was in first after the first 10 games, and he was literally on crutches. So I happened to bowl on the lane with him, and it was literally either Valerie or I would go up there when it was his turn. We would stand at the ball rack, hand him balls. He would just put one crutch down, lean on the other, and throw balls. And he just kept going until he was mathematically eliminated. And he made it all the way through the 19th game before he fell out of 10th place and gave up.
Yeah,
that was
I
Alan.
I think he might have shot 450 for the first 3 games. Like he really dug himself a hole.
Yeah.
You said that it was Alan Clark?
Yeah, Alan Clark. Yeah.
Wow, he must have been getting like Russian drugs or something coming in to like help him out or something. Good for him.
He just leaned on the crutch. He had the cast on. He just leaned on the crutch. He leaned over and tried to heave the ball out, and he actually kind of got the hang of it. I think for the last 6 games he might have averaged something like 190. He kind of got the hang of throwing with no steps.
Kudos to him.
Yeah.
So we do have a question here. I'm
Sure.
going to ask because she wants me to ask her. Greg, do you slide? Because apparently Cindy doesn't slide at all, she says.
My slide would be considered shorter than it's not a plant, but it would be a very short slide as compared to, say, a left. That's just the way I've always learned how to play. She plants. That's interesting. That's tough on the body, and it's also very tough to maintain good timing.
Yeah. Well, she has her own body issues, so maybe that's something she needs to work on. So that's on the to-do list.
You heard it here, Cindy.
Yeah.
Rest in peace, Tim.
Yeah. Well, let's move on while I get myself a deeper hole. Let's maybe talk about Greg's accolades a little bit. I know we were talking about a little bit earlier. Obviously, he's a Hall of Fame member. In 2017, he was inducted into the 05 Hall of Fame. The real neat stat that he has back in, I believe, in 2000, the Ontario 5 published the top 90 bowlers of all time, and he was ranked 3rd, only behind Fraser Hamley and Ian Cameron. So if you want to maybe discuss a little bit about how that kind of went about and how that felt. And I know you have 8 provincial wins. I know you won a nationals. I believe it was in '89, I believe, right on the team with Mike.
In the open, yes.
Correct, yeah.
It's a great. First of all, I was very humbled that I was included in that list. Of course, with Fraser Hamley, which my late friend, I knew Fraser for almost 40 years. I think, in my opinion, overall, for longevity, I don't think there's an equal to Fraser. And I know, and it's no disrespect. I mean, I'm an Easterner, so I got a chance to see. I got to bowl against him, and I bowled with him. And so maybe I'm a little bit biased. And of course, Ian Cameron was a phenom in the Ontario Masters, and he made it quite a thing. So to be included with those guys was like, yeah, that's pretty good. You're doing all right when you're included with those fellas.
Absolutely.
The Open, I was lucky enough to make it 24 times in about, I guess it was 28 or 29 years. In 3 different zones, I won 6 men's teams. Of the 6, 4 of them were 2 of them back to back, which was really neat. The 89 men's team, that's a good story too. We flew out to, was in Red Deer at the old Riverside. And when we checked into the hotel, we learned later that the hotel clerk had a grudge against Ontario and he booked the Ontario team in the basement of the what's the hotel? It's not the name of what it was before. That one with the tower in Red Deer. I can't think of the name of it right now.
Sheraton? The Sheraton?
It's a Sheraton now. It wasn't before. It's got that comedy club or something. Anyways, we walk into the room, and there's a bathtub, but there's no shower. Now, I've stayed in a lot of hotels in my time, but we were furious. We were just. Anyways, long story short, we start off. We go 13-0. First 13 games, we don't lose.
Wow.
As it turns out, we ended up bowling Alberta for the gold medal, and this was just a single game, not the double that it is now. And we were losing. This is the Calgary team. Don Sim, if you're listening out there, Don, I reminded you about this story about 3 months ago when I saw you last. Don Sim was on that team, Colin Keir, and I can't remember. That's the two that come to mind. We were losing the game. We were getting beat. It looked like we were going to lose 7-1. Anyways, Mike was bowling fourth. I was anchor. Mike goes up and punches his third head pin in a row. And the coach was going to pull him. A friend of mine, Frank Hutz, who's no longer with us, good guy. And I said, Frank, don't pull Mike. So Mike goes up, and at that time, Mike was throwing a banana backup ball, throws for the left 3-2. The 3-pin rolls across the deck and splits the other 3-2 for a head pin spare on strings. The guy who was up next on the Alberta team was throwing a corner and pitched the ball in the gutter 2 feet out on the lane. And the game flipped. We won 7-1, and we win gold.
Wow. That 89 team, I actually have it up here. For the Calgary team was Don Sim, Terry Farquharson, Roy Cunningham.
That's the guy
Colin Keir, Doug Goodman, Brian Rossetti. I was talking to Rossetti. He said that was probably the best team he's ever played on, and he said the Ontario guys beat us that year. Not even crazy.
And the nice part was that Mike ended up throwing almost 900. He threw 950 his last 3 to grab the top spot. And they did the CBC was covering the singles event live that year. And Mike starts off on 7 in a row, and the guy he was bowling against, Bob Greider from Manitoba, started on 5 in a row. One of the best matches I didn't see Mike throw one ball. I was too goddamn nervous. I couldn't even watch. But he ended up winning the gold medal. I mean, double gold medal doesn't happen very often from our perspective in Ontario. I mean, it was
right.
The 6 wins. You got to remember, one of the things I wanted to, and this is no disrespect to the West. I mean, you guys have a smaller population base. You have 5 zones here in Alberta. Saskatchewan, I believe, has 4. We had 24 zones. Mm-hmm. We had 24 zones in the Open, 24 men's teams, 24 ladies teams, 24 mixed teams, and 72 singles players. Men's, 72 women, 72 men, 3 from each zone. We used to bowl a 48-lane house Sherwood. You'd come in there, and all 48 lanes were going at the same time. So you had a 1 in 24 chance to win, and it was really, really tough to come out of Ontario in the Open.
It was incredibly tough. Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm not going to lie. One of the reasons that we left Toronto was I was thinking about getting back into competitive bowling, and I knew that I was not going to have a path to making it to anywhere good, still living in Toronto or Brampton or any place like that. And that was, that and the, ridiculous cost of houses was one of the reasons why we left and looked for cheaper places to live.
I like how you led with my bowling career wasn't going to go anywhere in there first before the housing costs.
Why do you think we chose PEI after we decided to leave Manitoba?
Yeah. So Greg, in that format, how many times did you play each team? Just once, or was it a pool format? How did that work?
When we had the 24 zones, there were 4 groups of 6. You would bowl every team twice, which would be 10 games. And then the winner from each group would then go into a double round robin.
Right.
6 games.
So, yeah, I understand that you had to beat 24 other teams, but essentially you only had to actually beat 10, right? You're playing 6 in your pool, and then you're playing another, right? Yeah, definitely. Obviously, the depth of the fields is going to be quite a bit different too, right? Your teams are going to come from different zones and stuff like that. That's cool. I would love to play in an event that large, right? That's insane.
Well, I can honestly tell you, the first time I won in '87, and we went to the Nationals, was in Winnipeg. And this is another good story. Bowling at Academy Uptown. Winnipeg has a heat wave. It's 95 degrees at the end of April, and Academy has no air conditioning. And we're wearing polyester. Oh, that was good.
Yep.
But was
that the old movie theater? Sorry.
Yeah.
Yes, which is now they kicked them out and they moved the lanes.
Right.
Yeah, they're uptown now.
One of the things was that when I first saw the Open, after being at the provincial with that kind of, like, the electricity with 48 lanes going, my friends that are listening in Ontario right now, John, all you guys, you all know what it was like. You walked into the building, it was absolutely electric. And then you go to the Nationals, like I said, in '87, and like, this is kind of a letdown. It just, we had that for so many years, that kind of charge in the building. It's hard to describe. It really is, unless you've experienced it.
When I was in the Open and PEI for the first time, I couldn't believe there was no noise. Like, I remember what it was like, just like 4 Steps regionals or Youth Challenge provincials in the 90s in Ontario, and it was just a nonstop wall of noise. And then I came here, and there's some chatter, but there's no cheering. Nobody's that happy. It really is a world difference.
That's crazy.
It's crazy. It's almost. Sorry, it's almost like it's a bigger thing coming out of Ontario than winning the national championship a little bit, right? Sometimes it's a bigger feat.
It was, and the 24 zones that we had, there were many of them were competitive. There wasn't, we didn't have the domination, like, for example, here, with the 5 zones. Basically, it's now competitive wise, it's usually Edmonton, Calgary, or Red Deer. I know the North and the South have won, but they have not won for a long time. With our 24 zones, in that format with the groups and then the double round robin, you never knew who was going to win. There were obviously the favorites, but there was never necessarily a dominant team per se.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
I got to segue into the Open. It's one of my Fraser Hambley stories, which I'll put in here now.
For sure, yeah.
We were bowling. Was Mike on the team? And Fraser always liked to play leadoff. Mike was 4th, and I was anchor. In the last game, we were playing. We were in Toronto at that time. We were playing York West, and just before we had to put the lineup down first, and just before the deadline for that, Fraser says, "I want a team meeting." And we're like, "What the hell? What do you want a team meeting for?" And he turns to us, and the coach was a good friend of mine too, Scott. And he says to us, "Listen, why don't we flip? Greg, you go on top, I'll go on the bottom." And we said, "Oh yeah, sure, but why?" He says, "Well, the last time I bowled the guy on the bottom, who was Steve Konopelke, is another good friend of mine, I bowled 400 against him." I said, "Okay, fine." So, anyways, we start the game and we're going along, and my game was really close. Mike pulled ahead a little bit. Now Fraser starts off on first throws the first one, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth. He throws 7 in a row. By this time, the game is over. We've got the totals. There's no way we're going to lose. Fraser goes up 8, 9, gets the first one in the 10th, gets the 11th one. Now, I'll set this up for you. He's standing on the approach, ready to go for the 12th one. He stops. Team meeting. I'm not kidding you. I'm not shitting you on this. Team meeting. So he comes back and he says, "Listen, if I throw this 12th shot, the prize was, I think the 05 was offering a trip to Florida." And he says, "How are we going to split this 7 ways?"
I love it.
And we're like, I'm standing there like, are you fucking kidding me? You're on 11 in a row, and you want a team meeting? Holy shit. Of course, he goes up and pitches wide for 440. You can't make this stuff up. I mean, Hollywood couldn't do it any better. I mean, another time we were on, and John Honeyford, if he's listening, will back me up on this. We're on 35 and 36 at Sherwood, and we're playing Ontario Durham. And Fraser's playing Chuck Park, another great bowler, Hall of Famer. Anyways, Fraser goes up, throws the ball. The ball hasn't hit the arrows, and Fraser turns around as he's walking off the approach. Ball hasn't hit the arrows yet. And I leaned over to him and I said, Fraser, why did you just do that? I said, because he was the type of person that would never do that kind of stuff. And I said, he says, I knew it was a good ball.
Oh, man.
Oh, like I say, you can't make this stuff. You can't make this stuff up.
Well, I mean, he shoots 410 at the guy the first time, shoots 440 the second time. That's a good strategy missing. That means there's room for improvement next time.
True.
Guy's a little scared next time.
Yeah, he's like, next time he's got to throw the perfect game against him. I love it.
He was an absolutely amazing bowler, but he was also an amazing human being when it came to being off the lanes, the way he conducted himself. I wish I could be that type of person. I'm not that type of personality. But he was that type of personality. Got another one for you. There's another Fraser story. 3 weeks, we used to bowl the City Majors League in Toronto. It was a traveling league, and we bowl anywhere between 6 and 10 houses every year. 3 weeks to go in the season. Fraser's ahead of me in high average by 6 pins. So the 1 week I had to, and this was we bowled the fill system. It was a 6. We had 7, then went 6. Same as the Open. You bowl frames, and you can make 1 substitution. You used to be able to make 2. Anyways, 3 weeks to go. Fraser doesn't want to. He's trying to protect his average. Anyways, we're bowling at Ace Bowl in Scarborough, and I had to go bowl a Master Bantam tournament, so I couldn't be there for the first 2.5 games. So I told my teammates, "I'll be back. I'll take a cab," and it says I'll be back for 2.5 games. So I come back for 2.5 games, and I averaged 309. Okay, second to last week, we're at Olympic Westway. Now, Fraser always bowled with one of his, another Hall of Famer, a gentleman by the name of Holly Leet. Great player in his day. A wicked sense of humor, but unfortunately, Holly liked to tip a little too much. Anyways, Fraser doesn't want to bowl at Olympic. It's a really tough double diamond house, and Fraser wants to protect his average. Well, the start of the game, Holly is laying prostate on the bench, passed out on lane 12. And Fraser's trying to get him to bowl. He says, Holly, I don't care if you have to kick the goddamn ball down the lane. Just bowl. Right? Holly's 3 sheets to the win. He's done for the day. So Fraser ends up bowling. It was a 5-game league. He shoots, I think it was 13-20, 13-25. I roll 14.5 for 5. Okay, so I'm catching up. Last week of this series, we're bowling at April Lanes. John Honeyford will remember this one. 24-lane double diamond house, dry as a bone. It was one of my favorite places to play. I roll 15.57 for 5 games and take the high average away from Fraser.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
That's awesome.
So that average protecting thing happens out in Ontario too, eh? Adam Weber, Freddie Toppelmeyer,
Matt Schultz.
Matt Schultz.
I don't have the stat in front of me. I can't remember how many times he won the high average in that league. I did, and to me, but traveling league, the Metro, of course, it's no longer there, and of course, they always bowled Saturday afternoons, which nowadays is prime time for bowling centers for birthday parties and stuff. So the league would have gone anyways at one point, but to bowl in that type of to bowl 6, like I think 1 year was 6 houses, and every week you go in, you don't know what you're getting, and to maintain a really good average in that league is really, really tough. I think it is. I think that's the truest test of bowling. I mean, when you if you're playing in a house like Sherwood, or you're playing Toppler, Paradise, or Bonnie Doon, you know what the lane. If you're playing the same league every week, the lanes basically don't normally change. If they do their oiling, and if they're any kind of house, they do it the same way every single week. So you basically know what you're getting into, right? Whereas you go to a traveling, we never knew what we were going to have when we walked into these places.
Yeah, totally agree.
Why I love the Masters. Yeah. So let's transition into the Masters.
Sure.
Lead us through
Great
that.
segue, Kerry.
Well done. That was perfect. Like it was set up that way.
I played 18 years in the tournament division. I qualified 12 times out of the 18, and 8 of them in a row, which is an Ontario record. Now, I'll set this up. This is another thing that's different, or was different, in the Masters in Ontario. When I was playing, we had a 64-game aggregate tournament score. No drops. You bowled 5 10s, and the last tournament was a 14. So 64 games every year. When you bowl 64 games, you cannot get lucky and make the team. It's not. It never happened. Trust me on this one. It never happened. So Ontario always sent, that year were always the best players, the 5 best players that year in the province. Yeah. And I have 8 wins in the Masters, but that's another thing. Our Masters tournaments were like mini cash tournaments. Like, you guys bowl 8 games and then it's top pinfall wins the tournament. We had single game knockout. We had double knockout. We had pins game. They did mixed triples with the women, double knockout. So winning at Masters tournament in Ontario was like winning at one of the cash tournaments out here. It was that type of format. We didn't have very many that were just strictly step ladder. I think there was always one in that 64 games. One of the 10 games was a step ladder, and a couple of the optional ones were. But it was really tough to win a Masters tournament. And I'm proud to say that I won 8. I didn't win as many as some of the other guys. I mean, there was a few that got away, but my average 263.79, I'm very proud of as well. It's maintain that kind of average. It was over. I got to think now how many games it was. 1,178 games, I think it was.
That's crazy amount
in my book. Yeah,
that's 1,000, over 1,000 games in a Masters career is absolutely crazy.
That's cool.
There's guys that have got more than I do. If you go on the Masters website, I think it's mbo.ca, you'll see the stats. The stats are all there, and there are guys that got more games than I do.
Well, I'm thinking 1,000 divided by 48 out here. That'd be 20 years at least for us out here, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tim's average is definitely above 263, but he only throws at Masters, so that makes sense.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
the one thing, to have the drop, okay, if you're consistent, I always, and I'll segue into this. If you bowl 260 for 6 tournaments, you're screwed. If you average 260 for 6 tournaments, you're screwed.
Yeah.
Because what ends up happening is somebody shoots a 29 and a 22 and then shoots 260, you lose 400 pins right then and there. So I always thought, the only thing, of course, with the 64 games mandatory is that if somebody unfortunately had to miss for whatever reason, illness, family matters, whatever, it was unfortunate that you were disqualified. You couldn't go to the Nationals that year. That's the only thing that was bad about it. I understand the thing about the drop because it's a travel thing too in Alberta, same as BC. BC does the same thing, and their travel is even more extreme than Alberta.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's the main point is the travel for some people. But it's kind of weird that way. The people that make the commitment to the Masters and that go to all 6 are usually the ones that travel the farthest. It's the ones that actually have access to the tournaments that will play 4 out of 6 or whatever. It's kind of weird that way.
Yeah, that's true. You never see Bonnie miss a tournament. You'll see Bonnie miss a game, but you won't see her miss a tournament.
That's right.
I've got a little trivia thing for you. This happened in a Masters tournament. I'm thinking this is going back about 35 years. You're on a double. You count 30, 15, 0. You keep every ball on the lane, and you don't foul. What happened?
Between the pins, 3 shots?
Nope. Even better. This happened to a lady bowler by the name of a very good bowler by the name of Margie Bratkin. It was at Queensway Bowl in Toronto, which was one of the best double diamond houses there ever was. She punched a head pin downstairs. I think it was on lane 7. I think it was. Punched a head pin. The head pin came off the curtain at the back and stood behind the 3 in the deuce. And then she threw 2 balls through the hole.
Wow.
But not between the pins.
Right.
Which is kind of cool when you think about it.
Daryl would have loved that one for scoring competition.
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt. I mean, I was thinking, what did you go gutter, strike, foul? Like there's only so many ways.
Never seen it since. Although we did see one. The gentleman I mentioned, the coach John Willock, when Sherwood was free fall, he started on the first 11 strikes in a row. He was on the other side of the house. I could hear that that the crowd was cheering, and he goes up and throws the last shot, and everybody goes, "Yeah!" Oh no! Flip the 3-pin up on the corner pin position, 448.
Oh.
Yeah.
I've seen lots of sliders, but nothing for on a perfect game. That's crazy.
On free fall machines, especially double diamond machines, that was, I wouldn't say common, but it was a shot that would happen from time to time. You'd flip a 3-pin back up into the deuce position.
Yeah. Crazy.
Unreal. So obviously you have 4 national championships.
4 golds in the Masters, yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Go over any of those teams?
No, the 4 in the Masters. Well, I made it 12 times. I made a medal every year, and there were 4 golds in the team and 1 gold in the singles.
Oh, that's awesome.
Good for you. Was there any year that stood out, or some good stories from any of those years? What was there a favorite team that you had?
Oh, I played with a lot of great teams. I can remember one that we were on. I can think now if it was 1985 or it would have been 85. No, 91. I think we were at Polo Park, and all the 20 games, all of them went to the 10th frame. It was never decided.
Wow.
We never ran either. Yeah, it was always decided in the 10th frame. It was that was pretty special. The win at the singles was interesting too, because it was being held at Nebs, and nobody at that time, that would have been 1994, nobody had bowled on synthetic as a rule. There weren't very many synthetic houses at the time, and people actually fell during the nationals at Nebs because they weren't used to the synthetic approaches. And I think that may have been one of the strongest fields that I can remember that was in the men's tournament division singles. It was myself. There was Wayne Davies from BC, Bruce, Tom from Saskatchewan, Doug Wood from Manitoba.
Holy crap.
And I'll be damned if I can remember the 2 guys from Northern Ontario and Quebec. But it was a really, really strong field. I ended up bowling Tom in the finals. But that's
amazing.
An interesting. Actually, it was funny. They tied 3 spots for 2 positions to determine the thing. The last 2 positions, it was a tie for 3 of us, and they were going to hold the roll off the next day. And I went up to the tournament director and I said, "Listen, Henry," I said, "I got to go back to work." I told him if I didn't qualify, I got to go back to work. What are you going to wait a day? Hold the bloody tiebreaker now, right? I got my wish. It was good to. No, but it was silly. I mean, why wait? Just do it now. I mean, we have the lanes.
Yeah.
So it wasn't going to take more than 10, 12 minutes. Just do it now. I said, well, everybody's already warmed up. Are you going to start again tomorrow? But that was, and it was really interesting. That was really a neat thing, because I was living. We were living with my dad, 15-minute walk from Nebs. So I would go and practice. I would walk from my dad's house down to Nebs and back and practice. Every time I walked down there, I'd be dreaming about, this would be really great if I could win the singles tournament this time. And I was fortunate enough to win once. The other time I lost to Tom, actually, was at Polo Park in 91. I lost to Tom Stevenson. Sorry.
Right.
That's crazy.
So we'll move on to something that's near and dear to my heart, the WCBT kind of cash tournament area. You obviously, on your listing, you've won the Manitoba Open Championship twice, the KG Open,
right.
Which maybe some of our younger viewers wouldn't know about. It was a tournament held in Saskatoon at the KG, unfortunately no longer with us. You won that, and the Invitational, which TPC currently runs that type of event as well.
That's
and right. You won back-to-back TSN championships.
That's amazing.
Yes, I did.
That is pretty unbelievable, especially TSN. It was, as little as I know about it, because I only got to play in it a couple of years, to qualify out of your zone or your part of the province and then go and compete in that condition. From what I understand, you sat the whole time, then you got to play one match. Pretty crazy.
Yeah, that was. I love the TSN format, and I'll tell you guys, this is something I've not shared with anybody. But I said I told Mike and a couple close friends. I said, if they ever get me on that show, I said I'm going to be a hell of a time to get off, because I love the idea of the one frame match. It's basically 10 one-frame matches. Score doesn't come into play unless you're tied at 5-5. And I'd watch the TSN, and I'm thinking to myself, I always see guys go up. The guy got to beat 11, and he goes for the head pin. And I'm thinking to myself, what are you, nuts? You actually see me in the finals of the TSN. The first year I won it, my guy goes up and counts 12, and it's a carry over 2 frames, and I'm on a strike, and I tell the crowd I'm going to chisel. I actually point. I'm going like this. I tell him I'm going to throw outside, and I did. You got to. That's the way I've always looked at playing. If you need a shot, I learned how to play that way. I learned how to try to hit it thin. But I'm saying, you look at it. I can remember a guy losing the Open Singles Championship, the provincial. He needed 13 in the final frame. He punched a head pin and cherried both 3 pins off for 11 and lost it by 2. And I'm like, no way. I never would have played it that way. Yeah, it was an interest. You're right. It was pressure packed. You know, you got to go on TV. You got to be ready. You get a few warm up shots. Then they turn the lights on and away you go. And it was quite intimidating. The first year went really well. The second year, I didn't really bowl very well the second year, but I bowled enough. I threw 2 horrible games, but I was lucky enough to win 6 frames in both the 2 games that I bowled bad. And that's the thing. If you're struggling, that's the thing about the TSN format. If you're struggling and the score is close, and as long as it doesn't end up in that 5-5 tie, if you're going for the frames, you don't have to worry about score.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Because I can remember the finals of the second year. The guy shot 162, and I bowled a $190 something, and I won 6 frames.
Yeah. Well, we've had matches on the WCBT Tour Finals that have been that way, right? The guy wins 6 frames but lost score.
Exactly.
Every one of my losses are 5-5 lost to pinfall. Every one of my losses.
You got to win 6 frames, bud.
Yeah.
I really do miss going to the KG tournament. Was a really special event. It was, I mean, I know it's like it was the forerunner of what you guys are doing now, but they had doubles and triples, and of course the invitational. And I used to go, the first year that I went out was in 1991, and we had 30 guys from Ontario that came out. 30.
That's amazing.
And I was, and it was, there's another good segue on that one. That's when they were doing the top 48. And the top 16 would get the bye on the 2 sides, which I think is a great idea to get more people into play. Anyways, I didn't bowl very well the first round. I sat the second round, and my good friend, I hope he's listening, one of my mentors, Donnie Betts, who now lives in Nova Scotia, he was going to bowl the third round, and he says, "Do you want to bowl this qualifying round?" And I said, "Well," he said, "Look, we'll go splits." So I said, "Okay, we'll do a 3-way split." So I qualified. Anyways, I'm going through the match play. I think I lost on the one side or whatever. And I ended up playing Mike. First time, only time we ever bowled against each other in 40 years. So if he wins, it's all our money. If I win, I got to split 3 ways. But these guys have got me in the Calcutta. So I'm like, okay, you got to talk about this. Okay, you got to talk about this before you start. You got to talk, okay? So we're talking about it. And I said to him, I said, look, I says, these guys were good enough to put the money to bankroll me and do the split. I said, I'm not going to screw my friends over money. We're going to play this straight down the line. Whoever wins, wins. It went down to the 29th frame. Oh, another guy that was with us as part of the, I call it the syndicate, Billy Williams, another good friend of Donnie Betts. was pacing up and down. I think he wore a whole. It was like an old woman. He was pacing up and down so bad in the back. And he says, I never saw two guys try to kill each other. And I ended up edging Mike 840 to 829. And then I lost in the finals to Mark Sawatsky. And that's when it was 10,000 for first and 5 for second. And the Calcutta was huge that year. It was 8,000 for first and 4 for second. So, excuse me. And so these guys ended up winning, the split on the 5,000 and the Calcutta money. And I remember because they took us out to dinner at Thomas Cook, which is still there. And Donnie and the guys picked up the tab for all 30 guys. It was a $500 meal for all of us. And they gave the waitress a $100 tip, and she almost had a heart attack.
Yeah. It's kind of neat you talking about those stories. And once again, 5-Pin Universe doesn't condone any gambling. But investment seminars are
Bowler's
getting pretty
investment
big.
Seminar.
That's right.
Nailed it.
They're getting that way again, right? Like
are.
Regina's insane. TPC's getting up there. Even Red Deer, I think 2019 was really high. It's nice to see it coming back around. What's his face from NWT that used to travel? Terry Burns.
Terry Burns
he used to bring a lot of money down. And
Yes, I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. And unfortunately, with his passing, so did that money and stuff like that. But it's pretty cool to see that coming around again.
Yeah, especially Regina. Regina's been the biggest one for sure. There's been multiple people going over $1,000. Yeah. So it's definitely picked right up.
I'll tell you another humorous story about what happened in Saskatoon. The gentleman I used to room with, I was talking about part of the syndicate, Billy Williams. Whenever he used to travel, he always used to buy something for his wife. And he was secure enough that he would buy clothes for his wife wherever he went. So we went across the street to the mall. You got to remember, this is 1991 or 92. So Saskatchewan was probably not as enlightened as it is now. Anyways, we went into, I think it was a Reitman's. And he held up this dress and he says, I'm thinking of buying this for my wife. And I said, yeah. And he looked and the saleswoman came over and he held up the dress and he says, what do you think of this? I said, I don't know, but I don't know if they have it in my size. I thought the saleswoman was going to die on the spot. And I'm like, I said, okay, I guess these, it's not as not as enlightened out here as as you'd like to be.
Yeah, that's awesome. So also on your listing, you have a tournament listed as the Dick Adams Memorial. You have 5 of those and 4 of the 369 Winter Classics. What kind of tournaments were those? Were they
the Dick Adams was a 10 gamer high pinfall. It started off in Oshawa at Oshawa Lane, not Oshawa Lanes, at Motor City Bowl, and when they moved over to, then they continued on at North at Nebs. The 369 was a 10 gamer. Of course, you get your strikes in the 3rd, 6th, and 9th. The one thing I can remember about that one is the last Dick Adams that they had on the Dick Adams. They only had 29 entries, but the proprietor, who's another good friend of mine, Tom England, guaranteed the first prize and only took $1 for lineage. And a good friend of mine, Jeff Stevens, ended up rolling, I think it was 2,900 for 10 games, but he didn't win. I shot three grand. And it was only there's only 29 of us bowling. The 369 tournament was a really good event. It always drew the best bowlers in the province for those 10 games. And it's kind of fun bowling, getting a strike in the 3rd, 6th, and 9th. So you're basically only bowling 7 games, right, instead of 10.
Yeah.
But I remember that one. I think the last one that I won, I shot the first 5 games. I had 1910 with a 433.
Wow.
Jesus.
And 1,600 for my last 5. So it ended up being 35-10 for. That's when Nebs was free fall, and you really could score in that place.
Yeah.
Wow.
I should say that louder. You hear that, Jeff? Back when Nebs was good scoring.
Yeah, he did say he was going to listen.
I haven't been back to Ontario. I've been out here for 13 years in May, and I haven't been back ever since we moved out here. So I can't really comment. I see the feeds, and of course I see my buddy Mike Herbert.
Conditions are good there now. The last time I was there, Christmas and a half ago, was the closest I got to shooting 1,000 for 3.
Wow.
the conditions really did change dramatically in around that time, and
well,
it's certainly not like it was in the Open in 2015 when it was a graveyard for almost everybody.
Well, one little pet peeve I have about 5-pin, and I know I'm going to get in trouble, and apologies to Annette Bruno about the C5, but I think this whole idea about having different size pins and different things, I don't like it. And I don't see, I understand what the C5 was trying to do, but I see things happening now, especially on the taller base pins and the 17 inches that you couldn't do 35 years ago. Like the ball skipping the corner. Like I've done it myself. I'm throwing a 3.9, 3.10 ball at the speed that I throw, and the ball skipping the corner. It should never happen.
Mm-hmm.
And I get that we get different conditions. Like one of the arguments somebody gave me was, well, we bowled on free fall and string. Well, I would agree with that, but we didn't change the size of the pins, nor did we change the placement of the pins, and we're the only game that does it. I got some stats. I wrote some stuff. I got to see if I can find it now. I went on the C5 site and I looked at the perfect game records because they go back 46 years. And we had 3 consecutive seasons where there were over 20 perfect games. One of them was 25 perfect games shot in 1 year. This is before they even started screwing around with that. And there were years that there were like 7 perfect games. Well, you say to yourself, well, what happened? Did everybody just bowl bad? No, there's always one constant that always remains in the game. It doesn't matter. It's the band. It's always the band that makes the pinfall happen. Lane conditions, yes, has a lot to do with it. But if you have bad bands, you're going to have bad scores.
Yeah, I'll agree with that for sure.
That's my rant.
Yeah. I think the black bases, the black bases on the wood, it really helped our pinfall, and we didn't get the balls, jumping in front of the 2 pins. When we went to synthetics, we definitely have way more balls jumping the 2 pins now that they have the synthetics and the black bases. You add in the 17s on center, you're way worse. Yeah.
Well, the thing is, the reason that happens on the 17 is because the ball is not hitting the rear quadrant of the band. It's now hitting the front quadrant of the band. Yeah. So it's now in a place where it's going to deflect more. And like I said, I've thrown 3.9, 3.10 balls. And unfortunately, I'm going to have to wrap this up because I'm almost out of juice, guys.
Yeah.
We're close. On my phone, I mean.
Yeah.
One other thing I wanted to...
Yeah, go ahead.
I wanted to give a shout out to, I hope he's listening in Nova Scotia, is a guy that you talked about. He wasn't really an instructor, but he was a great mentor of mine, is the great Donnie Betts, who's also, in the Hall of Fame, and has been a friend of mine for over 40 years as well. And I hope he's listening. And I says, I miss you. And I hope to see you again one day. But he is an absolute, he is listening. Okay. Hi, Donnie. He's like the Robin Williams on the lanes. He's just, we had so many good times in Saskatoon in that tournament.
Yeah. Everybody that you talked about tonight, Greg, has been on there, even John Willock, and he appreciates you bringing up the 448. So. John knows. John also has 2 perfect games as well. So I know he was disappointed with that 448, but it was just one of these little quirks that I had to throw in there. But it did happen on free fall on occasion.
For sure. So before your phone dies on you. Oh, go ahead. Sorry, Gray. I didn't mean to cut you off.
I was going to say this is a good story about the first perfect game that I shot. The Masters was doing a tournament at Stellar Lanes, and we did a match play instead of qualifying. We just match play from the get-go. And the guy that I drew never showed up. We were waiting and waiting and waiting. He finally called. He says there was some kind of traffic accident or something. He was delayed. So we were sitting around for 20 minutes waiting for this guy to show up. So we start off, and of course we were bowling on the TSN lanes, 13 and 14. And I start off 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And I was like, oh, okay, 10 in a row. We've been here before. Let's see if we can get 11. I throw 11, left pocket, get a string pull on the right corner. Everybody screams in the house. And the last shot, I'm going up this first attempt at a perfect game. And I'm thinking to myself, just hit the goddamn head pin. Jesus, don't miss. Just hit it. Flush left pocket, strike. So I bowled a perfect game. And the guy's name is Mike Delaney. He's a lefty. I don't remember this or not. But so that was that thing waiting for 20 minutes. It was kind of neat because they gave a trip for on Air Canada, anywhere in Canada for a perfect game, which was kind of cool. Yeah.
That was really cool.
I got one more story for you. The greatest adjustment you've ever going to see. Mike, we were bowling a tournament in Guelph and Kitchener, and he pulled a groin muscle at Guelph, and he shot 1,008 for 5 games. And he didn't want to come back the next day because he was hurting. So I said to him, I said, well, we're bowling on double diamond tomorrow. I says, I'll show you how to throw the ball. Just dump the ball on the lane and just let it roll. And we went to Plantation, as it turned out to be, and he learned how to do it. And he said, okay, I'll try it tomorrow. So he goes in the next day. First frame, he decides to get stubborn and try his old way. Counts 3. Okay? Then he starts dumping the ball. He then rolls 1701, which is a men's record in the tournament division for 5 games. Talk about an adjustment. 1,008 to 1701.
Crazy. JB, you've got a story here you'd like to share?
Yeah, just a quick one, a simple one, Greg. So when I was getting ready to move out of Toronto, I started realizing there were a bunch of places in Toronto I hadn't bowled because I didn't get the chance to bowl there much as a kid. I was bowling mostly in Peel. And so I took the subway up to Finch. I wandered into Newton Brook. It was the only time I ever bowled there. I don't remember when exactly it was, probably around 2005, 2006, something like that. And I just went in to throw a few games. I'd never seen the place before. And then this guy walks in, dragging a suitcase full of balls. And I kind of went like this. I said, okay, that's interesting. And so then he threw one ball, and I went, holy shit, Peteraitis. Right? So that was an easy thing. And I think you were literally on the next pair over from me. And so I have a rule in my life. I don't go where I'm not invited. So when I meet people that I watched bowl on TV, I don't go up and talk to them because who the hell am I? Who wants to hear from me? So I just kind of, I sat there for a while, and I watched you for a while, and I probably just tried to find an excuse to make a couple of comments to let you know that I existed and was paying attention, and I knew who you were and was watching. And you know, I really am I'm struck by how gracious you were in talking to me, this guy you never met, you never saw again, and helped me out a little bit with my game, even though it seems like I've lost you now, and maybe that means your phone died. Then you can always just watch this back in the recording. But so for the benefit of everyone else out there, oh, great, you are still there. I just want to say that I really appreciate you, Greg, for treating me like that. And it's, you know, it is one of the things that after a long layoff kind of made me feel like I was still part of the bowling community. And so it's really neat for me, you know, 15 years later to get a chance to be on this show with you.
Thank you. That's very kind of you to say. I think that's one of the responsibilities we have when we get better and we have success in the game. People talk about what we owe to the game. I don't look at it like that. I look at it like we need to pass on the knowledge, like the stories that I told you tonight, the things that happened. If I don't tell them, then they get lost. And this is all part of our history. That's what the great stories that Fraser Hambley used to tell me about his heyday. If we don't pass on this information, it gets lost. And I think it's important to mentor. I think that's one of the things that's missing in the game that I was lucky enough to have to a certain degree, the mentoring system. And I do that. I do that through coaching. I'm a very selective coach. I will coach if someone asks me to coach. I don't usually go over and offer my, as you said, JB, you know, intrusion and thing. Like for example, I've worked with both Michaela and Marcello over at Toppler Bowl. I was asked one day, that's actually a really good story. I was asked by Stacy, because I used Stacy before play, and Stacy said, "Well, do you think you could help Michaela?" And I said, "Sure." I says, "I'll work with anybody's going to learn. I'm ready to thing," and it worked out really well, as she was a willing. That's all I ask about somebody if I'm working with them, is that they listen, and be open to new ideas. I think by the time you're a teenager, your style is probably set, and I would never recommend tearing down somebody's game unless it was absolutely necessary. At the time, she would have been, I guess, about 8 or 9 when I started working with her.
Did we lose him?
Was that it?
Oh.
He was teetering. Yeah, he was teetering there for a while.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's too bad.
That is too bad.
I like to pick up what he said, though, because that's part of the reason why I drag my ass out there on Saturdays. And I've been thinking a lot about this, and what really came to me is that I would love for some kid, that I worked with in their 20s, 30s, 40s to be telling stories about me the same way that I tell stories about the coaches who were really influential to me. That even if I never end up, reaching any of the competitive goals I have for myself, I think that having that kind of a legacy, if anybody should want to talk about me after I'm gone, even once, then that's the mark that I can leave on the game.
It's funny because I just talked to Dexter about it earlier today, and I was talking. I sent it over to Cindy last night. It was when we had Tom on, and I said I gotta get my editorial done. I wrote about paying it forward, right? And that's what my editorial is about. It's about how I was fortunate growing up, and I was where I was, and it's about paying it forward to the next generation, right? And that's how I think what we all have to understand and pay and carrying those stories and carrying that all along, right? So,
yeah, I think we're really lucky. We have such a great community out here, and across the country, and people are really willing to help. And I think honestly, and as simple and as dumb as this sounds, I think the biggest, most important thing you could be is approachable. If people are willing to even just come out and say, hey, I'm so and so, and have a conversation with them. If they want help, give them a pointer or two, but be approachable. And I think that's so important in our game, because that'll further the relationships down the road, and better everybody. So I think it's super important.
I give the kids a little speech just before the provincials usually, and I just tell them, okay, look, I'm here to help. I'm going to keep an eye on you. There might be a point where I start to walk over to talk to you. I'm here to help. If you don't want to hear from me, all you have to do is this. Even if you got a scowl on your face, just do this. And I know, okay, not a time to talk to you. That's cool.
Yep.
And I think that really helps them feel like, and now I get kids who I met when they were 11 or 12, because I can't handle little kids, who by the time they're 14 or 15 will just walk right up to me and say, I need help. Come over and watch me. And that warms my heart to know that they see me that way.
Totally. Yep, absolutely. That's all we can really hope for, really. Our legacy as human beings will outlast our legacy as a bowler, right? So, yeah.
And since I don't have kids, it's nice to be able to rent the lanes for a couple of hours on Saturday and then give them back to their parents and let them be their responsibility.
Yep, absolutely.
I'd just like to thank everybody for joining in and listening to Greg's stories and JB's project. Unfortunately, we didn't get Greg's duckpin side of his stories. If people didn't know, Greg was the first Canadian to make a cut on the Duckpin Pro Tour. He started kind of that influx of Canadians going down to Maryland and Baltimore area to play those tournaments, and hopefully that is a thing again. I know the Duckpin Pro Tour has been canceled. I'm not sure if they're going to be running this summer or not. They usually run during the spring and summer months, but so if anybody ever runs into Greg, maybe ask him about that if we can't get him on for a small segment later on down the road, or how that works.
When do we get our trip together down to Argentina to Bull Duck Pin?
Argentina. Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, they play.
Argentina and the Philippines are the two big countries in the world in the global network.
5-Pin U live from Argentina. I like it.
Playing hard.
Hey, you know what? JB is your incentive. You hit 260, we'll talk about it.
All right. Everyone heard it, right?
That's right.
I'm committed to it.
I love it.
That's awesome. Do you guys have any final words before we close this podcast down?
Well, Kathy, what's my score? I'm grateful that Greg came on, and I like to thank Greg, and I do like to thank that JB for hopping on tonight. For what we thought maybe was kind of going to be a loose cannon tonight, turned out to be a pretty good night. So I do thank everybody for sticking on. Yeah, it was really good. So thank you guys for a great night.
Yeah. Always great chatting with you, JB. Thank you for coming on. Honestly, awesome. You always have such a positivity to life and the game, and it's awesome. We really appreciate you.
Next week's guest we do have booked, and it's going to be all the way from Regina. It is Brad Mones. So we're looking forward to bringing Brad Mones on. And
hopefully our part-timer podcaster will join us next week, Mr. DB. He is...
what is it? Here we are, number 85. And Carrie, Carrie, I don't think you've missed one, right? You and we're the two that haven't missed one. I was supposed to miss one, and then we all missed it. It didn't happen.
Yeah.
So here's Daryl. He's been around for 6 podcasts, and he decided to take a vacation. Wow.
Yeah. We love you, DB. Don't take it personally. All right. But where's the commitment?
That's right.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everybody.